Okay, well, thanks very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here to be able to talk about the new centre. And it's, of course, very, very early days. I think our start date was the 2nd of January this year, and that was 6 weeks after the NISA consortium had been selected to undertake this task. So we're very much in a setup phase. I think it'd be difficult to describe it in any other way. But we are charging full steam ahead. And our ambition is to be a go-to place for research on economic statistics in the modern economy. So we want to be an international focal point. Let me just say that I think what the ONS has done here is absolutely fantastic. So what they've done is they've gone out and invested in an independent research centre outside the ONS. And the reason that is so fantastic is because it has enabled us to assemble a very large network of academics to support the ONS economic statistics analysis strategy. So it's a very, very, very large network. It's so Charlie just described it as a hub and spokes model. It's based at the National Institute, and we're very proud to be hosting it there, not least because we have a long history of research on economic statistics, economic measurement issues. It's delivered as a consortium with our partner institutions from King's College London, Nesta, Cambridge, Warwick Business School at the University of Warwick, and also Strathclyde Business School, and there also we have the Fraser Lander Institute. We have about, I think, 30 plus senior academics involved in this exercise, and they're not just from the partner institutions, they're also from a broader range of institutions, including the LSE, University of Nottingham, Royal Holloway, Stanford, Sussex, and Queen Mary. And the reason that we went for this rather broad-based approach to supporting the economic statistics analysis strategy is simply because the economic statistics analysis strategy is so enormous and covers such a broad range of issues. So I think the only way that one can bring the expertise that's required to the table is to have quite a broad network. Underpinning our research consortium here is also, and we have an academic advisory panel which we put together during the bidding process and which we're also hoping to expand. And that includes some thought leaders and very prominent academics. Also, we have an international expert network that we've set up, which has experts on economic statistics from places like Statistics Canada, Statistics Netherlands, Statistics Norway, the OECD, the BEA, to name some of them. So I think it's fair to say that there's been a lot of goodwill towards this endeavour in the research community, and I think that reflects the fact that people take this quite seriously. The work is very important, but also a genuine interest in being able to measure and analyze economic developments, and of course that starts with the data. So the ESCoE that we've set up that we're setting up is very much facilitating a partnership between the research community and the Office for National Statistics. So for the researchers involved, it's an opportunity to undertake cutting-edge research that will actually have a very significant impact. Ultimately, that's what we're hoping for. And for the ONS, it's an opportunity to draw on the range of expertise that's out there and that can help them in delivering their economic statistics transformation. So that's reflected throughout our research program and in the way that we plan to undertake the research. We have a dialogue we have a series of projects. We have a dialogue between ESCoE researchers and ONS researchers on all of these projects, starting with kickoff meetings, and it will extend throughout the research process. The idea there is, of course, to ensure that we maximize synergies between what's already being done, what we want to do, and to avoid duplication, and also to ensure that the research we do doesn't just go off on a tangent, but also becomes something that has the possibility to feed into ONS methodologies and practices going forward. So we'll be producing a series of recommendations, and we want those to be recommendations that can be used readily. Our partnership is also about building the economic statistics community. So Charlie Bean just mentioned how Economic statistics research seems to have become a lesser pursuit amongst economists, and we would like to contribute to changing that. One way we're doing that at the ESCoE is to finance a series of PhD studentships. So I think Warwick Business School have already put out an advert for one PhD studentship starting in October to work on nowcasting issues. King's is also putting out a couple of PhD studentships, one to work with Martin Wheel, one to work with Mary Omani. And so, we hope to put out another two later in the process. And these PhD studentships will be ones where the students will be working directly on the issues that we want to cover in our program. The other thing we're doing in building capacity is we want to encourage secondments, so between the ONS and the ESCoE, but also from other departments. We'd be very keen to see people come and want to contribute to the program, for example, through a joint secondment to the ONS, ESCoE, and the data science campus. Tom will talk about the data science campus, but I think that the opportunities for incredible collaboration between the ESCoE and the data science campus are enormous. I think that a lot of inroads could be made there. Also, we are also implementing some training activities. So one thing we'll be doing to build the community, we've talked to the Center for Economic Performance, and what we're going to do is have a series of seminars on the data that we're using, illustrating what one can do with it. And the idea there is to get people, other PhD students and also junior researchers involved in using the data that typically leads to better data the more users you have. And we'll also have master classes and other training activities. So I want to talk a little bit about our research program. This is the research program for the next couple of years, so phase one of the ESCoE, if you like. And we're delivering research in three ways. First, through this program that we put together in the bidding process, which I'll discuss in a minute. We're also providing sort of a call-off service, so the ONS, for example, if they have a project that isn't covered in what we've suggested that they really want to undertake and they have additional funds to put towards it, or if other government departments had that, then we can put together a team. And the third way we're going to be putting together research is through additional bids to other funding departments or funding bodies. That might sound a bit odd, given that there's just been plopped a lot of money towards this research program. But I think you'll probably accept, following what you've heard for the last 2 days, that the program is very broad and ambitious, and we want to increase the resource to go towards these things. In fact, we put in a bid already here in January to this effect. When we put together this research program, we sort of had a few things in mind. One, we wanted it to be broad in scope because of what I just said about the economic statistics analysis strategy, and we wanted to match it with the relevant expertise. The other things we had in mind were we wanted to have projects that had the blue skies thinking, the conceptual, the time to sort of do some conceptual thinking about what we're measuring. But also we wanted to have some projects which made better use of existing data sources. And also we wanted to have projects that were covering topical issues and meeting users' needs. So very much reflecting the points that Jonathan Athau made yesterday morning, his three key points he took away from the Bean Review, and which Charlie Bean just reiterated here as well, I think. Those are those three, the sort of the changing economy, the data that's sitting there and waiting to be used, and the changing user needs. It's those three things that we tried to reflect in the research program. So we've grouped the projects that we have in three buckets, if you like. National accounts and beyond GDP, and productivity and the modern economy, and regional and labor market statistics. And I'll just briefly go through what we're doing in each of those areas. So in national accounts and beyond GDP, we have Jagjit Chadha, who's the director of the National Institute and a professor at Kent. He's leading a project on historical national accounts data, and I think the idea there is to look at what we actually have available and what reconciliation issues what can be dealt with to improve those historical data and to make them available to users. We have Andrew Harvey from Cambridge leading a nowcasting GDP project. And the idea there is to maybe minimize or try to minimize the discrepancies between the early estimates of GDP and later estimates of GDP by modeling. And involved in that project as well is Simon Kirby from the National Institute and George Kapitanos from King's and Ivan Petrella from Warwick. Martin Wheel is leading democratic measures of income. We heard a lot about how GDP may not measure everything we're interested in yesterday. Martin has made the point in this project that GDP growth basically, when we calculate that, households are weighted by their income. We might be interested in things like the median household, and so he's creating statistics on these types of things, or median income growth, basically. And that raises a whole bunch of issues around appropriate deflator one might use, etc. And he's doing that with Nick Olton. James Mitchell from Warwick is leading this project on modeling and communicating data uncertainty. So the idea there is to, first of all, estimate the transitional uncertainty in the GDP data, and then to think about ways of communicating that uncertainty and see how users react to different ways of portraying that uncertainty. And so, there is the concern that users sometimes overinterpret the accuracy of the data that they're being presented with, and so I think this should be a very interesting project. So that's what we're doing sort of in the national accounts and beyond GDP bucket. We have then a stream of work on productivity in the modern economy. Mary Omani at King's is leading a service sector project, which I think will be focusing on some of the issues we talked about in the last sessions here, including the appropriate deflators to use in the service sector, and there's quite a few people involved in that project. Diane Coyle is leading a project on measurement issues in the modern economy, which will consider some of the things that she talked about earlier today and which were also discussed yesterday. And Nick Olton has already mentioned some of the things he'll be focusing on, looking at sectoral productivity estimates. These projects are all happening in the first 2 years of the center. And I guess with Nick's project here, the first thing he's going to be looking at is double deflation. And then the idea is that this project gets taken forward. So unlike most of the other projects, this project will carry on into phase 2 of the center, where it will be able to build on some of the findings from the other projects on services and the modern economy. So we'll be able to include some of those results in estimating sectoral productivity. We have a project on trade and value added, led by Giordano Mion at Sussex, and undertaken with Dr. Monique Bell at the National Institute and Sally Srinivasan at the Institute as well in the Bank of England. And here, what's being done is we're taking a look at the microdata, firm-level microdata, to see if we can estimate trade and value added for relatively finely defined sectors. And the interest should be relatively clear, given the situation we are in at the moment, and we hope that this project will add to the evidence base already this year. We then have a project led by Nick Bloom at Stanford, developing firm-level data for productivity analysis. The main gist of that project is to develop information on firm-level uncertainty and to look at how that impacts on various different firm performance outcomes. Now, this is a project where we do need to raise additional funds, and we are trying to do that because we would like to do this earlier rather than later because, of course, uncertainty is something that we have plenty of, or we think we have plenty of at the moment. So it should be an interesting project. Also within that project, we want to link various firm-level databases to see what additional analysis might be done in terms of explaining productivity. We then have a series of projects on regional and labor market statistics. The first of these is led by Jonathan Wadsworth and also involves Jonathan Portas at King's. And there, this is about not so much about the changing economy. This is more about, well, we have all these data lying around. Maybe we might be able to use them to tell us something we want to know about the economy at the moment. And so they're looking at various administrative data sets to see if there's more that can be explained about migration and labor force statistics. Similarly, in the second project, which is led by Peter Dalton, and also by Hassan Bakshi at Nesta and Richard Dorset, there, again, the idea is to look at data sources, new data sources, and see whether that can be used to boost or to improve labor market flows data, but also skills and occupational classification. So there's sort of two aspects to that project. The first is the labor market flows, which uses admin data, and the second is looking at recruitment information that you can pull off the internet to sort of look at what employers are looking for in terms of skills and occupations, and see whether we can use that information to change classification systems. Then it was very interesting to hear earlier today what people are interested in terms of regional statistics. I think this is something we can help with. Gary Koop is leading a project on regional nowcasting. And what we want to do here is to, and this is with James Mitchell and Stuart McIntyre, what they want to do. And there was a nice poster outside yesterday which explained what they wanted to do, so you may have already seen this. But they want to be able to provide higher frequency regional GVA data by modeling the data, basically. So that should be quite interesting too. And then we have a project on improving regional economic indicators undertaken by the Fraser Lander Institute and Steve Gibbons at LSE. And I think this is potentially a longer-term project, but what they want to focus on in the first instance is whether we can measure intra-UK, inter-regional trade. So looking at novel forms of data to be able to explain trade between Wales and England, Scotland and England, Scotland and Wales, etc. So, I hope that looks like an interesting set of projects. I think it looks very interesting in any case. And it also certainly seems to be in line with many of the things that people are wanting or have raised as issues over the last day and a half. However, when you see, this is an ambitious research program, but when you contrast it with the agenda for the economic statistics community, of course, it's just the start. I also just wanted to mention that we are undertaking, separately from this research program, we've been tasked with developing a mechanism for valuing economic statistics. Quite a tall order. But what we will be doing is we will be undertaking a survey with users and doing some interviews with statistics users in the next 6 months, and then repeating that a few years out. And the idea is that that might tell us something about what people think about the economic statistics transformation program that the ONS is putting in place. But we're also doing a modeling exercise there with the National Institute Global Model. So it was very interesting to hear Kate Barker talking yesterday about the one time when she felt that the GDP revisions might have influenced her policy making. Maybe she didn't say it quite like that, but it sounded like that. That was in 2008 when the GDP data were a bit slow to pick up the economic downturn. We can model the economic effects of policy decisions, different policy decisions, depending on different truths. So that it doesn't tell you necessarily about the value of economic statistics, but it's perhaps a nice illustration that might be useful for a broader audience. I'll leave you with this. John Pullinger mentioned yesterday that our website had gone live at this address. I'd like to row back on that a little bit. There is a holding page, and one can download the research program there. There's a PDF file. But please come back at the end of March when there will be a proper website rather than a holding page. And we hope to advertise our events our events and our research program and networks, etc., more clearly. I just want to also mention we have a discussion paper series, a peer-reviewed discussion paper series, where all of the ESCoE research will feed into, but we would like that to be a much broader series. So we would like to have contributions from the economic statistics community more widely. So thank you very much.